The stage lights buzzed above Studio B, reflecting off the glossy courtroom set where millions had watched Judge Judy hold court for decades. But this wasn't a regular taping. The network had been teasing a special live political edition for weeks. And sitting across from Judith Sheindlin, under the hot glare of a camera labeled Live, was none other than Denzel Washington. The moment had been engineered for ratings, but no one expected fire from the first 5 minutes. "You've made your entire career acting like a moral compass," Judge Judy began, her voice clipped and sharp, "but where is that compass when it comes to law and order?" Denzel didn't flinch. He simply tilted his head slightly, a gesture of curiosity, not defiance. The studio audience leaned in. "You're asking me where my compass is," he said slowly, "but your gavel isn't a GPS either." The crowd chuckled nervously. Judge Judy narrowed her eyes. The lines were drawn. Producers in the control room exchanged frantic looks. This wasn't the friendly sparring they'd hoped for, this was raw tension. Live. Unscripted. Judy leaned forward, her tone escalating. "You come on this show talking about justice and truth. But when was the last time you defended police officers instead of vilifying them?" Denzel didn't answer immediately. He let the silence work for him, a trait he'd mastered through years of playing powerful men with few words. He glanced at the camera, then back at Judy. "I don't vilify people," he said. "I hold them accountable. There's a difference. One scares cowards. The other builds character." The room held its breath. And Judy, instead of composing herself, snapped. "Oh, don't get high and mighty with me," she barked. "You Hollywood types love to talk down to the rest of us like you've earned some moral gold star." Denzel's response wasn't a monologue. It wasn't a rant. It was a single movement, the kind that defined screen legends. He smirked. One side of his mouth curled up. Just enough. He leaned back. Hands clasped. Unbothered. That was all it took. The crowd stirred. Phones came out. The moment hit Twitter before the second commercial break. And the expression on Judge Judy's face wasn't fury anymore. It was something closer to panic. Because she had just screamed. And Denzel had simply smiled, the camera didn't blink. It lingered on Denzel's face, that steady, unsettling smirk, the kind that didn't shout back, didn't fight fire with fire. It was quieter than any retort, but somehow louder. More lethal. Judge Judy's eyes flicked toward the audience. For the first time in a long while, she wasn't in control of the room. "This isn't a movie set," she snapped, trying to regain the upper hand. "You don't get to walk in here and play hero with half-truths and attitude." Denzel finally leaned forward. Calm, deliberate. "I didn't come to play anything," he said, his voice low but undeniable. "But if you think truth is just a performance, maybe this courtroom's been a set all along." The audience gasped. A woman in the second row covered her mouth. Even the cameraman seemed to hesitate before zooming in. Backstage, the showrunner mouthed, "Keep rolling." Judy slapped a stack of notes onto her bench. "Don't preach to me about truth," she said, pointing. "I've dealt with real criminals. You talk like the system is evil, but you live in a mansion paid for by it." Denzel didn't flinch. He simply nodded. "You're right. I do live well. But don't confuse comfort with complacency. I don't owe the system blind loyalty just because it gave me a check. That's not gratitude. That's silence disguised as respect." For a second, Judy froze. That line, silence disguised as respect, hit like a hammer. Then, as if trying to recover, she stood from her seat. "You think you're untouchable?" she shouted. "You think because people like you, you get to lecture the country on morals?" Denzel didn't move. Didn't blink. "I think I get to speak," he said plainly. "Just like you." Silence. Then a burst of applause. Small at first. Then louder. Judy turned toward the crowd, stunned. "You're clapping for that?" Someone yelled from the back, "Because it's real." The control room panicked. Producers scrambled to figure out how to go to break. But the moment had already gone viral. Clips flew across X, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, all titled with some version of, "Judy lost it, Denzel didn't budge." And the most shared frame? Denzel's smirk. Frozen in time. Unbothered. Undeniable. Unmoved. It should have been over by now. A tense exchange, a flashy headline, and then back to commercials. But this wasn't normal television. This wasn't a soundbite show. This was a cultural moment unraveling in real time. Judge Judy took a breath, her hand trembling slightly as she reached for her water. She wasn't used to being challenged, certainly not like this, not on her own stage. "You think you can walk in here and hijack this conversation?" she asked, trying to sound composed, but the strain in her voice betrayed her. "This isn't your pulpit, Mr. Washington. This is a courtroom." Denzel folded his hands. His tone didn't rise, but his words cut like a razor. "Funny," he said. "Because the people watching don't see a courtroom right now. They see a woman screaming and a man being told he doesn't belong, again." A ripple of murmurs moved through the audience. Judy slammed her hand on the desk. "Don't you dare play that card." Denzel leaned forward just slightly. His eyes didn't blink. "I'm not playing anything," he said. "I am that card. You just don't like it when someone flips it face up." Even the stage lights seemed to dim after that. The weight in the room had shifted. Again. The audience wasn't moving. They were glued. Paralyzed. Riveted. From behind the scenes, a producer whispered into the earpiece, "We're trending #1. Twitter's on fire." Judy, now visibly rattled, tried a pivot. "You want to talk about truth? Fine. Let's talk about the people you defend. Thugs. Rioters. The ones who burn cities and scream for chaos." Denzel's face turned. Not angry. Just tired. Deeply tired. "I defend the unheard," he said softly. "And you're proving how loud someone has to scream just to be noticed." Another pause. A cameraman zoomed in so tight on Judy's face, you could see her jaw tense. She looked at Denzel, then past him, into the crowd that was no longer entirely on her side. Something about that terrified her more than losing an argument, the idea that her audience might actually be listening to him. She reached for the gavel, perhaps out of habit. "You don't get the last word," she said, desperate. Denzel smiled, not to mock, not to win. Just because he knew something now. "I didn't come here for the last word," he replied. "I came here because too many people never get a first one." Boom. The room exhaled. The network feed stayed live. And somewhere, in the silence that followed, the balance of power in that courtroom cracked. The internet did what it always does, but faster this time. Within minutes, the clip of Denzel's calm rebuttal had spread like a wildfire across every platform. Newsrooms scrambled, influencers reacted, and political commentators tried, desperately, to claim the moment for their side. But the truth was, it didn't belong to anyone. Because this wasn't about politics anymore. This was about control, and who had the courage to let go of it. In the green room behind the set, Judge Judy stood with her arms crossed, breathing hard. Her team hovered, unsure whether to comfort her or retreat. He ambushed the segment, her producer mumbled. Hijacked the tone. Judy didn't respond at first. She was staring at the monitor where a freeze frame of Denzel's composed face was being dissected live on 5 different networks. One anchor called it the rebuke of the year. Another labeled it the calm dismantling of judicial arrogance. Judy finally spoke, low and bitter. He knew exactly what he was doing. He didn't even need to yell. That's what made it work. Meanwhile, Denzel sat quietly in his dressing room, his phone buzzing with message after message. Most were from people he hadn't heard from in years. A few were from people he never expected to hear from at all. One text stood out. "You spoke for more than just yourself. Thank you. Ava DuVernay." Another. "You showed strength without performance. That's rare. Cory Booker." Denzel didn't smile. He didn't feel triumphant. Just reflective. He looked into the mirror across from him. "I didn't tear her down," he whispered to himself. "I just didn't let her tower over me." Meanwhile, public response was intensifying. A trending hashtag Denzel moment. A Twitter thread, "Why Judge Judy lost more than just a debate today." A TikTok loop, the moment he said, "I didn't come for the last word." Back in the studio, producers were now in crisis mode. Advertisers were calling. The studio board was asking questions. A CNN segment had already been announced for 8 p.m. titled "Civility vs. Control," who really owned that stage? Denzel's team urged him to post a statement, ride the momentum, go live. He declined. "I've said what I came to say," he told his publicist. "They'll either listen, or they won't. But I won't shout to be heard." And that, more than any mic drop or insult, was what made it dangerous. By early evening, the shock had settled into something colder: strategy. Judge Judy's legal consultant, Alan Reeve, leaned over her desk with a folder full of headlines. "Damage control?" she asked bluntly. Alan nodded. "Not just damage. Narrative. You lost control of the room. We spin it, or they'll define it." Judy was livid but calculating. "He didn't beat me with facts," she said. "He beat me with poise. That's dangerous." Alan didn't argue. He simply placed a few pre-drafted options on the table. "We can say it was an ambush. That his team never gave us full disclosure." Judy raised an eyebrow. "That makes me look unprepared." "Or we double down," he offered. "You call out the soft pedaling of accountability. Say he was deflecting, using charisma to dodge the real questions." She leaned back, wheels turning. Meanwhile, Denzel had gone silent on social media. No post. No statement. Nothing. And that silence? It was louder than any reply Judy's team could draft. Because the internet had already picked a side, and it wasn't hers. Clips of her shouting were now stitched together with slow zooms, meme captions, and even piano music. Denzel's smirk had become an emote. A gif. A mood. One viral tweet read, "He didn't need to win. She lost by losing her cool." Backstage, Judy finally snapped her fingers. "Get me a primetime slot," she said. "I'm going to respond. Calmly. Legally. Powerfully." Alan hesitated. "That might just revive the fire." "I'm not afraid of fire," Judy hissed. "But I'm not letting him walk away as some kind of prophet." Meanwhile, Denzel sat quietly at home with his niece, watching cartoons. "Uncle D," she said, flipping channels, "why is your face everywhere?" He smiled gently. "Because I told the truth." "Did she get mad?" the girl asked. "Yeah," he nodded. "But sometimes truth sounds like yelling, when people aren't ready for it." He didn't say it with anger. Just honesty. And in that moment, he realized, this wasn't over. Not because he wanted more attention. But because Judge Judy was planning a comeback. And this time, it wouldn't be in the courtroom. 3 days later, the announcement dropped. Judy vs. Denzel, a special unfiltered conversation, moderated by Anderson Cooper. CNN had secured the exclusive. The internet went feral. Why would he agree to that? Denzel's manager, Ruben, asked, pacing the living room. She's coming in loaded this time. It's not just courtroom banter now, it's national stage, optics, legacy. Denzel didn't flinch. She wants a rematch, he said. But I'm not stepping back in the ring. I'm stepping in the room. Ruben was exasperated. Do you realize how many politicians are using your clip to score points now? The left claims you as a symbol. The right says you staged it. Denzel leaned forward. I didn't speak for politics. I spoke because I was tired of people mistaking volume for value. The debate was scheduled for Friday night, prime time. The promos were electric. Split screen. Judy's stern face on one side, Denzel's calm gaze on the other. Tagline. 2 icons. 1 conversation. No scripts. The internet had already decided it would be war. But Denzel? He planned something different. He studied footage, not of Judy, but of everyday people. Clips of veterans, teachers, parents. He wanted to hear what wasn't being said. What people truly feared. Ruben sat beside him the night before the debate. She's going to try and rattle you, he warned. Push buttons. Bring up past roles, old quotes, anything to make it personal. She's welcome to try, Denzel said softly. But I'm not bringing heat. I'm bringing truth. Meanwhile, Judy was preparing her talking points like a war general. She had binders. Statistics. Expert memos. She's going to crush him on specifics, one producer boasted. But another assistant hesitated. Yeah, but what if specifics aren't what people care about anymore? The room went quiet. Because in a world addicted to noise, the calmest voice had just become the most powerful. And the countdown had already started. Friday night arrived like a thundercloud. The CNN studio was packed. Producers, makeup teams, camera operators, everyone knew this wasn't just a broadcast. It was a moment. Inside the green room, Judge Judy rehearsed lines in front of the mirror. You got soft, she muttered, practicing her opening line. You forgot what it takes to be right in a wrong world. Across the hallway, Denzel sat in silence. No script. No rehearsal. Just a glass of water and a deep breath. Anderson Cooper walked in briefly. Just keep it civil, he said nervously. We want heat, not fire. Denzel gave a half smile. I don't do fire, Anderson. I just light matches when it's dark. The countdown began. The theme music faded. The lights dimmed. And then. Welcome to a special edition of CNN Prime, Anderson said to millions watching. Tonight, 2 American icons face off on the subject of truth, power, and what it means to speak out in today's divided world. The camera panned, Judy on the left, arms crossed tight. Denzel on the right, posture relaxed but focused. It began gently. Judy opened with a statement on accountability. You can't just walk into a studio and act like you're above the rest of us, she said. You don't get to smirk your way through responsibility. Denzel didn't flinch. With all due respect, he said, I didn't walk in to be above anyone. I walked in to remind people that silence doesn't mean consent. And poise doesn't mean weakness. Judy leaned forward. You avoided every hard question that day. You danced around policy like it was optional. Denzel nodded. Because sometimes the policy isn't the point. It's the tone. The posture. The assumption that only loud voices deserve the mic. That landed hard. Anderson raised his eyebrows. The chat on social media exploded. Hashtags began trending within minutes. Hashtag Judy vs Denzel, hashtag truth not volume, hashtag the rematch. Then came the moment. Judy snapped. I don't care how many Oscars you have. This isn't a movie. Denzel looked her in the eye and responded calmly. No, Judge. It's real life. And in real life, yelling doesn't make you right. It just makes you loud. The room went silent. Even Anderson forgot his next cue. And across America, living rooms lit up with that quote. Judy's face tightened. Her trademark scowl, usually enough to intimidate seasoned lawyers, hit nothing but calm resolve. The air in the studio was razor thin, as if the whole nation had inhaled but forgotten to exhale. She leaned in. So what are you trying to be, Mr. Washington? The voice of reason? Or just the guy who makes everyone feel bad about having conviction? Denzel didn't blink. His voice, measured. I'm not here to make anyone feel bad. I'm here because conviction without compassion is just noise dressed in confidence. That sentence struck like lightning. Anderson looked stunned. His teleprompter kept rolling, but no one was reading it anymore. Judy tried to recover. That sounds poetic, but people are tired of speeches. They want answers. Denzel replied instantly, people want to be heard first. You can't lead someone you refuse to listen to. The studio fell into a second of deep silence. And then, something happened that no one predicted. Judy blinked. Once. Twice. Then she sighed. You think I don't listen? Denzel nodded respectfully. I think sometimes your courtroom never leaves the stage. And not everyone in America is on trial. There it was. The crowd watching from behind the cameras, producers, grips, interns, held their breath. It was no longer a debate. It was a reckoning. And then Anderson did something rare. He stepped back from the desk and simply said, let's give them space. The screen split again, side by side, Judy, older but fierce, visibly shaken for once. Denzel, grounded, as if he had rehearsed this not in words, but in being ready. Online, comments flooded in. He's not just responding, he's rewriting the tone of discourse. This isn't a debate anymore. This is a masterclass. The network barely kept up with the replays. Clips were cut within minutes. Shared. Reposted. Reframed. And Judge Judy? For the first time, she looked quiet. Not defeated. Just reflective. And that silence, oddly enough, felt like the loudest moment of the night. By the time commercial break hit, phones buzzed across the country. Cable news anchors whispered in earpieces, scrambling for analysis. Twitter spaces lit up. Hashtags evolved. Hashtag Denzel unshaken, hashtag Judy silenced, hashtag The View reckoning. In a diner in New Jersey, a group of retired veterans rewound the clip on someone's iPad. In Atlanta, a college professor paused his lecture to replay Denzel's quote. Even on Fox News, a guest commentator raised eyebrows. Love or hate him, what Denzel just did, it wasn't political. It was surgical. Back inside the CNN studio, the second half of the segment began, but the tension had changed. Not hostile anymore. Just heavy. Serious. Anderson opened, trying to regain structure. Denzel, Judge Judy, let's shift gears. Final thoughts, what do Americans need to hear most right now? Judy went first. Her tone softened. They need to hear that disagreement isn't betrayal. That firmness doesn't require cruelty. Maybe I forgot that. A murmur in the control room. This wasn't the Judge Judy the world knew. Then Denzel leaned forward. They also need to remember that dignity isn't weakness. And listening to someone who challenges you doesn't threaten your values, it tests their strength. Anderson paused. Then asked, Denzel, were you trying to make a point tonight? No, Denzel answered. I was trying to leave a mark. He glanced to Judy. You shout to win. But I speak so people remember. That landed so hard, Judy didn't interrupt. Not this time. Later, back in the green room, Judy sat alone. Her assistant approached. They're calling it a paradigm shift, she said. You okay? Judy nodded slowly. I've been the loudest voice in the room for 40 years. Maybe tonight it took silence to hear what I've been missing. The credits rolled, but the cameras remained on. Neither Judy nor Denzel spoke as the studio lights brightened. In the control room, no one dared breathe. Outside the building, crowds lingered beneath the marquee reading, Judy vs. Washington, the rematch. Phones recorded reactions. News choppers circled overhead. Back on set, Anderson Cooper closed with a standard sign-off, thanks for joining us on CNN Prime. We hope tonight reminded you, sometimes, the quietest voice speaks the loudest. But everyone knew it wasn't standard. It was seismic. A week later. Judy's reflection, in an interview with Vanity Fair, she admitted, he taught me, reminded me, that power isn't volume. It's conviction. It's listening. Denzel's Impact, a grassroots campaign, Quiet Courage, formed to promote civil discourse in schools and workplaces, inspired by his composure. Public opinion, polls showed a rare bipartisan majority praising restraint over shouting, peaking at 68% approval for, calm, truthful dialogue. In a small theater in Oakland, a community organizer replayed the moment to a crowd of activists. They cheered not for a side, but for the style. Tonight, she said, we learned that real strength is measured not by how loud you roar, but by how steady you stand. Denzel Washington didn't need to storm out. He stayed. He spoke. And then he walked away, leaving behind not noise, but an echo of change. If you believe in speaking truth with poise, in listening before replying, then you know what tonight was about. Subscribe to Power Stories, where we spotlight moments that show us a better way to fight. Don't just watch history. Be part of shaping it.